I never expected a simple family dinner to unravel my life in ways I could never imagine. My name is Laura and I'm 38 years old. I want to share a story that changed my life forever. It's a story about love, temptation, and the journey to rediscover what truly matters. It all started on a quiet morning in our small, picturesque town. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping my morning coffee as I watched the sun rise over the hills beyond our backyard. The gentle light of dawn spilled through the window, casting a warm glow over the kitchen. I glanced over at Mark, my husband of 14 years, who was flipping through the newspaper. His brow furrowed in concentration. We had been married for what felt like a lifetime, and our life together was comfortable and predictable. Mark and I lived in a charming cottage with ivy creeping up its stone walls, a reflection of our life. Cozy, stable, and well-ordered. We didn't have children, but our dog Max, a golden retriever with an endless supply of energy and a heart of gold, filled our days with joy and laughter. Despite the tranquility of our life, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. I loved Mark deeply, but lately I had been feeling a sense of restlessness, as if there was a hole in my heart that I couldn't quite fill. I found myself daydreaming more often, thinking about the adventures I had once dreamed of but never pursued. Mark looked up from his newspaper and noticed the distant look in my eyes. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked, smiling gently. I blinked, snapping out of my reverie. "Oh, it's nothing," I replied, forcing a smile. "Just thinking about the week ahead." Mark nodded, his expression softening. He knew me well enough to sense when something was on my mind, but he didn't press me. We had always been good at giving each other space when needed. As we finished our breakfast and prepared for the day, I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt for not sharing my feelings with Mark. But I didn't want to worry him unnecessarily. I resolved to push my restlessness aside and focus on the present. That weekend, we were invited to a barbecue at my younger brother Peter's house to celebrate his daughter Ellie's graduation from college. It was a warm, sunny day, and the smell of grilled food filled the air as the family gathered in Peter's backyard. Peter's house was always a hub of activity. Laughter echoed across the yard as Ellie and her friends played games, and the adults mingled, catching up on each other's lives. I loved these family gatherings. They reminded me of my childhood, of simpler times when life seemed full of endless possibilities. I noticed Noah sitting alone at the edge of the garden. Noah had grown up next door to Peter and was like family. I had known him since he was a teenager, and I had always had a soft spot for him. Curious, I wandered over to where Noah was sitting. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, smiling warmly. Noah looked up, startled, but then his face broke into a smile. "Of course not, Laura. Please have a seat." I sat down beside him, and we fell into easy conversation. We talked about Ellie's graduation, Noah's plans for the future, and the general happenings of life. I was struck by how much Noah had grown since I last saw him. He was no longer the shy boy I remembered, but a thoughtful young man on the cusp of adulthood. After a while, Noah fell silent, and I noticed a shadow cross his face. "Is everything okay?" I asked gently. Noah hesitated, then sighed. "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately. Ellie's moving away soon, and it's made me realize that I need to figure out what I want to do with my life." I nodded, understanding his predicament. It's normal to feel that way at your age. The future can seem overwhelming, but you have so much time to figure things out. We talked for a while longer, and I found myself enjoying the conversation more than I expected. It was nice to connect with someone younger, someone who still had so much life ahead of them. As the day turned into evening and the sun dipped below the horizon, the party began to wind down. People started to leave, and the backyard grew quieter. Mark had had a bit too much to drink, as he often did at family gatherings. He was cheerful but unsteady on his feet, and I knew I would have to drive us home. "Noah, could you help me get Mark to the car?" I asked, gesturing to where Mark was swaying slightly, laughing at something Peter had said. "Sure," Noah replied, getting up and following me over to where Mark was standing. Together, we managed to guide him to the car and get him settled in the passenger seat. After saying our goodbyes to everyone, I thanked Noah for his help. "Do you need a ride home?" I offered, noticing that he didn't have his car with him. "No, it's fine. Can walk." "It's not far," he said, but then he hesitated, looking like he wanted to say something more. "Are you sure?" "I don't mind dropping you off," I insisted. He glanced at Mark, who was already dozing off in the car, then back at me. "Actually, could we talk for a minute? I need to get something off my chest." Concerned, I nodded and led him a few steps away from the car. "What's on your mind, Noah?" He took a deep breath, his face serious. "Laura, I've been meaning to tell you something for a while now, but I didn't know how. I've developed feelings for you. I know it's wrong and I'm sorry, but I can't help it. I just needed you to know." My heart skipped a beat. I was taken aback by Noah's confession. "Noah, I don't know what to say. This is unexpected. I'm much older than you, and I'm married. You know this can't happen, right?" He nodded, looking pained. "I know. Believe me, I've tried to fight it, but I can't. I just had to tell you how I feel, even if it's just to get it off my chest." I felt a surge of emotion, sympathy, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite identify. "Noah, I care about you, but not in that way. You're young, and you have your whole life ahead of you. You'll find someone your own age, someone who can give you the kind of love you deserve." He looked down, clearly struggling with his emotions. "I know you're right. Just hard. I've never felt this way about anyone before." I reached out, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "It's okay, Noah. You'll get through this. You're strong, and you have so much to look forward to." For a moment, we stood there in silence, the night air cool around us. Then, without warning, Noah leaned in and kissed me. It was a gentle, tentative kiss, but it took me completely by surprise. For a split second I froze, not knowing how to react. Then, as if on instinct, I pulled away, my heart racing. "Noah, we can't do this," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm your neighbor and your friend. This isn't right." He stepped back, looking ashamed. "I'm sorry, Laura. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I don't know what I was thinking." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "It's okay. I know this is difficult, but we have to be careful. We can't let this ruin everything. Please go home and think about what I said. You'll see that this is just a moment of confusion." He nodded, his expression somber. "I understand. I'm sorry, Laura. I hope we can still be friends." "Of course," I replied, giving him a small, reassuring smile. "Take care, Noah." As he walked away into the night, I watched him go, feeling a mixture of sadness and relief. I knew I had done the right thing, but the kiss had stirred something in me. A feeling I hadn't expected, a longing for something different, something more. Over the next few weeks, I tried to push the incident out of my mind. I focused on my marriage with Mark, trying to rekindle the spark that had faded over the years. We took a weekend trip to the mountains, spent more time together, and talked about our future. But despite my efforts, I couldn't shake the memory of Noah's kiss, the intensity of his confession. One evening, as I was sitting on the porch, sipping a cup of tea, my phone buzzed with a message from Noah. "Can we talk? I promise it won't be like last time. I just need to say goodbye properly." I hesitated, my heart pounding. I knew I shouldn't go, but something in his words tugged at me. Against my better judgment, I replied, agreeing to meet him at the park the next day. When I arrived, Noah was already there, sitting on a bench under a large willow tree. He looked up as I approached, a faint smile on his lips. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly as I sat down beside him. "I shouldn't have," I replied, my voice firm but gentle. "But I wanted to make sure you're okay." He nodded, looking down at his hands. "I am. I just wanted to apologize again for the other night. I never should have kissed you. It was wrong and I'm sorry." I reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "It's okay, Noah. We all make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them." He looked up, meeting my gaze. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, and you're right. I need to move on to find someone my own age who can give me what I'm looking for. But I wanted to say goodbye properly before I did. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I quickly blinked them away. Goodbye, Noah. I wish you all the best. You're going to do great things, I know it. He smiled, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and resolve. Thank you, Laura. I hope you find happiness too. As he stood up and walked away, I watched him go, a tear finally slipping down my cheek. I knew this was the right decision, but a part of me couldn't help but wonder what might have been. In that moment, I realized that sometimes life presents us with choices that are not black and white. And while I chose the path of loyalty and duty, I couldn't deny the small, lingering ache in my heart for what could never be. In the months that followed, I focused on my marriage with Mark, determined to make things work. We attended counseling, communicated more openly, and began to rediscover each other. It wasn't easy, but slowly we started to rebuild our relationship. Meanwhile, Noah moved away to start a new job in another city, leaving the past behind. I occasionally heard about him through Peter, who told me he was doing well, adjusting to his new life. I was glad for him truly, but I knew I would always carry a small piece of that night in the garden with me. Looking back now, I understood that what happened with Noah was a wake-up call, a reminder that life is unpredictable and sometimes messy. It taught me about the complexity of human emotions, the fragility of relationships, and the importance of making the right choices, even when they're difficult. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the seasons began to change. With the arrival of autumn, the air grew crisp, and the leaves transformed into brilliant shades of red, orange, and gold. Our small town was known for its beautiful fall foliage, and Mark and I found ourselves taking long walks together, marveling at the beauty around us. Our life together felt more balanced and harmonious than it had in years. The unexpected encounter with Noah had, ironically, strengthened our bond. It had reminded us both of the importance of nurturing our relationship, of being present with each other, and of cherishing the time we had together. One Saturday afternoon, as we were raking leaves in the backyard, Mark paused and leaned on his rake, watching me with a thoughtful expression. "What is it?" I asked, looking up from my pile of leaves. "I've been thinking," he said, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "What if we took a trip, just the two of us? Somewhere neither of us has ever been. We could use a little adventure, don't you think?" I smiled, feeling a flutter of excitement in my chest. "I think that sounds wonderful. Where did you have in mind?" He shrugged, his eyes twinkling. "I don't know. Somewhere we can explore, relax, and just enjoy being together." "What about Europe? We've always talked about going but never actually did." I felt a surge of enthusiasm at the idea. Europe would be amazing. We could start in Italy, maybe visit Rome and Venice, and then head to France or Spain. Mark nodded, his excitement matching mine. "I love it. Let's make it happen. We can start planning tonight." That evening after dinner, we sat down together with our laptops, researching flights, hotels, and things to do in each city. It felt like we were planning a grand adventure, a second honeymoon of sorts, and I couldn't wait to see where it would take us. As we finalized the details, Mark reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm so glad we're doing this, Laura. It feels like we're starting a new chapter." I squeezed his hand back, my heart full. "Me too, Mark. I'm so grateful for everything we've been through. It's made us stronger." The next few weeks flew by as we prepared for our trip. We arranged for a friend to take care of Max, packed our bags, and counted down the days until our departure. I found myself daydreaming about strolling through cobblestone streets, sipping espresso in quaint cafes, and sharing new experiences with Mark. Finally, the day arrived. We boarded our flight, filled with excitement and anticipation. As the plane took off, I looked out the window, watching the ground fall away beneath us. I felt a sense of freedom and possibility, knowing that this trip was just the beginning of a new adventure. Our first stop was Rome, a city steeped in history and romance. We spent our days exploring ancient ruins, wandering through museums, and tasting the delicious local cuisine. At night, we would find cozy little restaurants tucked away in narrow alleys, where we would share plates of pasta and glasses of wine, laughing and talking for hours. From Rome, we traveled to Venice, a city unlike any other. We took gondola rides through the winding canals, visited beautiful churches and palaces, and even took a day trip to the nearby islands of Murano and Burano, famous for their glassmaking and colorful houses. Throughout the trip, Mark and I grew closer, rediscovering each other in a new and exciting way. There was something magical about being in a foreign place together, experiencing new things, and creating memories that would last a lifetime. One evening, as we were sitting on a bench overlooking the Grand Canal, watching the sunset, Mark turned to me, his expression serious. "Laura, there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about," he said, his voice soft. I felt a slight pang of anxiety but nodded, encouraging him to continue. "What is it?" He took a deep breath, hesitating for a moment before speaking. "I know this might seem sudden, but being here with you, seeing how happy we are together, it's made me think about our future. And I realized that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I know we've been through a lot and things haven't always been easy, but I love you more than anything. And I want us to continue building this life together." Tears welled up in my eyes as I listened to his heartfelt words. "Oh, Mark," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. "I feel the same way. I want to grow old with you, to share all the adventures and challenges that life throws our way. I'm so grateful for everything we've been through because it's brought us to this moment." He smiled, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I'm glad to hear that. And I've been thinking, what if we renewed our vows? Just the two of us here in Venice. It could be a fresh start, a new commitment to each other and our future." I gasped, my heart swelling with joy. "I would love that, Mark. It would be perfect." The next day, we arranged for a small, intimate ceremony with a local officiant. We stood on a bridge overlooking the canal, the city's beauty surrounding us as we exchanged vows. It was a simple yet profoundly meaningful moment, a reaffirmation of our love and commitment to each other. As we kissed, sealing our vows, I felt a deep sense of peace and happiness. This was where I was meant to be. With Mark, the man who had stood by me through thick and thin, who had loved me even when I didn't deserve it, who had been my rock and my partner in every sense of the word. After Venice, we continued our journey through Europe, visiting Florence, Paris, and Barcelona. Each city brought new experiences, new memories, and new ways for us to connect and grow as a couple. We returned home feeling rejuvenated, our hearts full of love and our spirits lifted. Back in our small town, life returned to its familiar rhythms, but something had changed. We had changed. Our relationship had deepened, our bond had strengthened, and we had found a renewed sense of purpose and joy in being together. As the years passed, we continued to nurture our relationship, never taking each other for granted. We made a point to try new things, to explore new places, and to always keep the lines of communication open. We knew that life would continue to throw challenges our way, but we were ready to face them together, hand in hand. And as for Noah, he remained a distant memory, a young man who had once stirred up unexpected emotions in me but had ultimately played a role in strengthening my marriage. I heard from Peter that Noah had settled into his new life, met someone special, and was happy. That knowledge brought me peace, knowing that he too had found his way. In the end, I learned that life is full of surprises, of twists and turns that we can never fully predict. But it's those very surprises that shape us, that teach us what it means to love, to forgive, and to grow. And for that, I was eternally grateful. Mark and I continued to live our lives with love, laughter, and adventure, always looking forward to the next chapter, whatever it might bring. And as we sat together, watching the sunset from our porch, I knew that we had built something beautiful, something lasting, something that would carry us through all the seasons of life together. Outro. Thank you for joining me on this journey of unexpected love and the strength of commitment. If you enjoyed the story, please remember to subscribe to my channel, like the video, and share it with your friends. And don't forget to leave a comment below with your thoughts and suggestions for improvement. Your feedback is always appreciated. Until next time, take care and keep believing in the power of love.